Hello, book lovers. Hello, people curious about the world. Welcome to Bookish, where your virtual hangout for author conversations and big ideas. I'm your host, Sam Dunn, who is battling an awful cold. Anyhow, Bookish is brought to you by the Southern California News Group and the Bay Area News Group, and now the San Diego Union Tribune. We are glad to have you, San Diego. Stay classy. Um, speaking of which, San Diego County Credit Union's Lift Up Literacy Book Drive, in partnership with the San Diego County Library System that collects new and like new books, started again on October 1st. Since its launch, the event has collected over 21,000 books distributed to over 55 little libraries and underserved communities that promote access to books, which research shows promotes better literacy outcomes in communities. Not a surprise to any of us here, right? Books can be donated at any SDCCU branch located in Southern California until the end of October. So do that. Okay, listen, everything we do is made possible by subscribers who make the choice to support local news. So thank you, subscribers, as always. And if you are a Reader Reward subscriber tuning into us now, you're automatically entered to win a $50 gift card to the Arvida Book Company in Tustin, California. Our September gift card winners were Carol Robertson and Janice D'Autremont. Oh, that's a great French name, Janice. Congratulations to you both. We hope you're enjoying your books. And hey, if you don't subscribe to any local news yet, why not? Here's your chance. Go to one of the websites on the screen to find a local paper throughout California. Get a subscription and find out how good it feels to be a stakeholder in local news. And oh, and another little thing I always have to mention, if you love repping your status as a bookworm, also check out our bookish swag. I should wear it sometime. Be a model. A quick note, if you have questions during the program that you want me to see, hit the Q&A button on the bottom of your Zoom toolbar. But if you just want to chat or chime in with fellow viewers, use the chat feature found there as well. And don't worry if you miss anything, we're going to send you a link to the full program, and you can also find it at scng.com virtual events and on YouTube, and that's where you'll find 5 years worth of bookish programming. So I am so happy. Today's program, we've got stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat, and let's just get rolling with it. Um, let's start with our first guest, Karen Palmer. Karen, are you there? Karen?
I
Hello?
am.
Yay, Karen! Let me introduce you to Karen. Karen is a beloved writing instructor at UCLA Extension, among other places, but she is best known as an acclaimed novelist and essayist whose work has appeared in the Paris Review, the Kenyon Review, and Best American Essays, among others. In fact, it was the Best American Essay that grew into her new memoir, She's Under Here, a love story, a horror story, a reckoning. Welcome, my friend Karen. I'm so glad to have you.
Hi, Sam. I'm happy to be here.
I'm so glad. Listen, as I told you when I read it, when I read the first line of your book, Once Upon a Time I Disappeared, I knew it was a book that I wasn't going to be able to put down, and I was right. So let's begin with the horror story part of the
Mhm.
story. Can you take audiences through the highlight of why you and your family, your second husband and your two daughters, had to disappear?
Uh, I was married before I met my second husband. That's why he's my second husband. And the
Funny
father,
how that happens.
yeah, it just sort of works that way. I'm a little nervous, so I think I'm constructing my sentences oddly. But my first husband was in many ways a dangerous man. And over the course of our marriage, he became more dangerous. Uh, and to the point that when I finally divorced him, he stalked and threatened me. He said he would kill me. He said he would kill my new boyfriend, now my husband. He told me in very gory detail the kinds of things he would do to me. And I knew he was capable of these things because number one, he carried a gun. He'd always had a gun during the whole time that I knew him, and he was not afraid to use it. I knew that also. And he had told me at one point um, that he had killed someone. And at the time, it scared the bejesus out of me. And then I forgot about it and didn't believe it. And it was only once the marriage fell apart that I started to realize, yes, he is capable of this, and yes, he might do it. And I could not take the chance of endangering my children and myself and eventually my new husband to someone who was so unstable and so dangerous.
And small detail, he also kidnapped your youngest daughter for what, 9 days, 7 days, 9 days?
That's correct. That was the straw that broke the camel's back, because I did get her back, but he told me at the time I got her back that he would do it all over again. That he
Yeah.
would take her and he would take the older girl too, or he would kill us all. And I was so heartbroken and so unable to deal with my daughter being gone, where all I did
Yeah.
was, cry. I had to look for her, but I also was, like crying all day long. So it was the most terrible time in my life. And I could not take the chance that he would do that again.
Yeah, and the way you write about that is so harrowing. And the fact that you say you disappeared, you really did disappear. You and Vinny, your second husband, along with the girls, went to Colorado. And luckily, you had some graphic design skill. You had to create new paperwork. You had to start all over again with new names, new everything. It's pretty incredible what you did.
It's like you couldn't do it now. It's like the graphic skills I had were the old-fashioned kind of skills, where you had a board and you did a paste up and it
We
went to
had an
the corner.
X-Acto blade
You
and
had an X-Acto blade and you dropped in the letters.
yeah.
So I took my second husband's original birth certificate and made like a dozen copies of it, and then messed with it and dropped in phony information and copied it and recopied it and tried to use certain kinds of paper stock, so that I wound up with a document that looked probably as close to his original as anyone could get, without actually having the printing press and the paper that they put it on.
It's pretty it's as everyone in the audience will see because everyone will buy your book. Really, I cannot recommend it. I cannot recommend this. This is one of those books that I've been hand selling to everybody I know, but it is the way this happens is pretty incredible. There are other questions, but we have a question from one of our audience members, if you don't mind,
Sure.
who says, and this is not a spoiler, I don't think. It kind of is, but we'll see how you answer it. Did Karen's husband first die? Is that how she felt finally able to publish this book?
I'm always torn about how to discuss that part of the book, because the circumstances that made it so that I could write about what happened to me, came about very late in the story. And
Yes.
so let me just leave it as I felt safe. There was a
Yes.
point at which I finally felt safe enough to do this. But you have to remember also that this book is written under my second name, my acquired name. So
Yes.
for anyone who used to know me in my old life, they would have to know my original name and they would have to make the connection between the two. There's not an automatic link there. So
And many, many years have gone by.
many,
Let's
many
just,
years. This
yeah.
this the events that led to me disappearing took place 35 years ago.
Yeah.
So it was quite
Yeah.
a long time ago.
I want to move to another section of the book. The subtitle says a love story. And when I read that, after I read the book, it occurred to me that there are a few stories about love in the book. There's the love of a mother for her children and what she will do and what she will sacrifice for them. The love you and your second husband, Vinny, share, which is pretty incredible. Vinny, when I finally met him, I just wanted to give him a huge hug.
Yeah.
And yet, really, I don't want to say most interestingly, but maybe most complexly, if that's
Yeah.
a word,
Confoundingly, perhaps.
confoundingly, is the love our narrator once felt for the man who became her abuser. And that is one of the elements of the book that I thought was so fascinating because you don't really make anybody a monster in this book, even though people behave monstrously. And I want to ask you how you got to that and how you
Uh,
thought about rendering him.
Part of, I was with him for a total of 14 years. So I was very young when I first met him. I was only 17. And I had come off this experience as a 16-year-old where I had a baby and gave it up for adoption. And he was considerably older than me. And I worked for him. I had a part-time job. I was a senior in high school and I had a part-time job as a secretary.
Hmm.
And we started dating, and he was older, and after my experience with having a baby, I couldn't deal with teenage boys. He felt mature and stable, and he was a great deal of fun to be around. And he was, at least in those early years, um charismatic and generous, and not a bad person necessarily. When I look back on it now, I think that a lot of that is that as long as things went his way,
Yeah,
as long as his life was on track and he was doing well, he was making money and had friends and had, me and then later the girls, and I worshiped him. I loved him so much, then he was fine. But as I grew older and started to assert myself, and I wanted to
that's
go, yeah, and that is the key thing that happens in domestic abuse, is as soon as the man feels that he's losing control of the women, then that's when it hits the fan and things change. So I still had all the
yeah.
memories of having loved him. So
Yeah, it was very incredibly movingly rendered, I felt. And another aspect, I don't know whether we talked about this or whether I've heard you talk about it in other interviews, but I think this is an amazingly interesting point. You said somewhere that people assume that you were looking for a father figure because your father was an alcoholic, he was ill, he was unavailable. But really, you were looking for a father figure for the children that you would have in the future. I thought that was interesting.
right. I mean, I'm sure on some level, you kind of can't escape it psychologically. Maybe I was looking for a father, but I never thought of him that way.
Yeah,
I didn't think of him as a father for me in any shape. But what I did see, he had children from a previous marriage. And I saw him as being very different from my father, where
right.
again, at that point in our lives, he was very involved with the kids. And
Yeah,
he seemed like a good father. And that was so appealing to me because I did want to have a family and I did want someone to have that experience with in a particular way.
right.
It just was sort of tragic that it didn't work out that way.
I would say very tragic. The other part of the subtitle is a reckoning. And that part of the story I thought was so fascinating and so deftly handled because, again, this is not a victim narrative. You examine your own motivations in a way that is brave and unflinching. And part of why I love this book so much, you said it took you 14 years
Yeah,
um,
13,
to
14
write
years,
this.
somewhere in there.
Yeah, to write this book. Was that the layer that was hardest to access for you?
It absolutely was. It absolutely was because I had the events, for a long time. I had we talk sometimes in writing circles about Vivian Gornick's book, The Situation and the
Situation and
Story.
story.
Yeah, where I had the situation, I had this extraordinary thing happen to me where, in common with lots of women, I had, an abusive marriage and a bad divorce and all
Forgive
that
me.
stuff. That's not unusual. But the lengths I went to get away were unusual. And I knew that part of it, the situation was always there. So I would, write out these things that had happened, and they didn't have what I was looking for in the narrative. It was just a recitation of,
Yeah.
this happened, and I did this in response to it, instead of thinking about what did it mean that I had done that. What did
Yeah.
it mean to change your identity? As a person who I not only gave up a baby, but I am adopted. So there are identity issues all around that.
Yes.
And if you are going to run away to another state and be a completely different person, what does that mean? So I had this long period of 20 years after we left, where it's not that nothing happened, plenty of things happened, but it didn't have the kind of drama that the events that led to running did. And I just didn't know what to do about that until I realized that the after period was equal to, and perhaps even more important than, the before.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
what did I do with what happened to me?
Exactly. I call that first draft you were talking about, the this happened and this happened. I call that the deposition draft. People
Yes,
just
exactly.
just need to get it down.
Yeah.
We have a question from Rick Catch, and he
Okay.
wants to know, have you or did you ever think you'll forgive him? I guess that being your first
Yeah,
husband.
my first husband. Um, I guess I did forgive him, because what are you going to do?
Yeah.
It's like certainly didn't forget, and writing the book is like a defiant act of not forgetting. I did not forget, and I don't forgive it in the way that we think of forgiveness, but more as acceptance.
Yeah.
Less, oh, I absolve you of your sins, and more, I see you and I see what
Yeah.
might have led to you doing what you did.
Yes, absolutely. I asked you this before. Full disclosure, audience members, Karen and I know each other, and we did an event last month together, so we've already spoken about this book. Um, but I'm interested in what you hope readers take away from this, because as I told you before, I really felt after I'd read it that in many ways this book is an act of service. I'm sure it was painful to write, but what it opens up for other people is pretty magnificent. So what do you say about that?
uh what I usually say about that is that domestic abuse takes all kinds of different forms. And for many, many years, I did not recognize that I had been abused in that way, in spite of having run away and changed my identity. I didn't see it as domestic abuse. I just thought my ex-husband was crazy. That's all. It was only very late in the writing, and as I was exposed to things like Rachel Louise Snyder's book, No Visible Bruises, that I
Mm,
saw that there's all kinds of forms that abuse can take, coercive control and lawfare and, uh, you know, like, I don't even know how to describe it, mild physical violence, where you're not
mhm.
being beaten, but you're shoved. My ex-husband once locked me in a closet for
I was just
hours
going to
and
say,
hours. Yeah.
you were forgetting the part where he locked you in the closet. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so that obviously is abuse, and it's obviously domestic abuse. I just didn't have the vocabulary. So what I want people to take away from it is to recognize, first of all, that it takes all kinds of different forms. And then for anyone who might find themselves in this situation, to look around and that, like, there is a sisterhood out there. There is there are people who have been through what you have been through, and you need to open your heart to see them so that they can help you and you can later help others. I didn't see it.
Yeah.
I did this sort of on my lonesome and never knew anyone that had been abused, which is probably false. But
Oh,
yes,
statistically speaking,
yes,
definitely
it's
false. Yeah.
definitely false. And
Yeah.
I just would like for the world to be more informed about this stuff. Not enough has changed. Not enough
Yeah.
has changed. So,
Yeah. One more question. I see the chat is blowing up. I'm sorry, you guys. Rick asked another question. Besides your second husband, did you have any friends or family that helped you get through this? I think that was your answer that you just gave us. So thank you,
yeah.
Rick, for that. But I just want to end with this. You have sworn to me and publicly every time I hear you that you are never, ever going to write another memoir again. And in fact, you're working on a new novel, right?
That's correct.
So what, so, but what did this writing change for you? Did it change you? Did it change your other writing? What happened? Because it seems like such a profound work.
What it changed for me was it taught me to be less surfacey,
Mm,
less to be patient about digging deeper. I mean, I didn't have any choice. It took all that time because I didn't know what I was doing. And
yeah.
so I had to sit with it. Whereas the novels, they had their ups and downs, but they sort of proceeded on a path to the end. I got there. And what this taught me was, well, don't necessarily go with your first idea of it, your first sense of what the scene will do or what these characters are actually saying to each other. Sit with it and see if something else will speak to you. So I'm hoping, I'm in the early stages of this novel. I'm hoping that translates into good work, but I guess we'll see.
I'm sure. Um, we have some other questions. All I can say is, people, the answers are all in the book. Please, get it, get it now, get it now. She's under here.
That's
Karen,
very
thank you
kind of
so
you.
much. No, it's true. I'm really, really, you're going to have to give me a cut of your royalties because I'm hand selling this book so much.
Thank
It
you,
came out
Sam.
in September, folks. Come back, Karen.
I definitely will.
Okay,
Thank you.
girl. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Take care. Bye bye.
You too. Bye-bye. Next up, I want to invite my colleague Emily St. Martin on briefly. Hello, Emily. Emily, darling, to tell
Hello.
us hello, to tell us about a fascinating profile she recently published on John J. Lennon, who happens to be an accomplished journalist and also a convicted murderer serving time in prison. Emily is the digital features editor of the Southern California News Group, a wonderful writer and a personal friend. Emily, welcome.
Hi, Sam. Thank you for having me.
Of course, I was just so fascinated by this piece. That's why I wanted you to come on. Can you tell us a little bit about how this reporting came about and how you found out about John's book, The Tragedy of True Crime, which sounds like kind of an unexpected twist on the true crime narrative?
Yeah, I mean, I found out about it like I do, with a lot of book stories. I got an email. I think my editor passed it on, and I was like, "Ooh, can I have this one?" We share press releases back and forth all day long, and I like digging into stories with a more serious bent. And so this one felt like it would be ambitious, and it felt like such an obvious conversation starter.
Yeah.
Anytime I chatted with my family, my husband, my friends about what I was working on and who I'd just gotten off the phone with at Sing Sing, it was like so many questions, so many opinions, so many, and so I was hoping that doing a story like this, the same thing would happen with readers, as it would be a real conversation starter because it's very thought-provoking.
Yeah. So can you tell us a little bit about the book, The Tragedy of True Crime, and what you thought of John Lennon? John, very auspicious name.
The other John Lennon, right?
The
Yes.
other John Lennon, the murderous John Lennon. Yes.
Yes. Um, okay, so the book is written by John J. Lennon, and it tells his own story, but it also tells the story of men that he is incarcerated with that are also behind bars for murder. And I think he really set out to try to humanize people who have done terrible things, which is interesting because as a reader, you kind of go back and forth, like, oh, he did this great thing, but then you're reminded of his crime in some other way because in the way that John writes it, he really doesn't pull any punches. He doesn't. Um, he's not like an apologist for these guys.
Yeah.
He's really kind of giving it to you straight. About what they did, and but his main gripe with true crime was that, at the end of the episode, um the bad guy's locked up and then the story's over. And he said there's this whole life and this whole thing that exists after that point. And so he wanted to tell those stories because he felt like those stories weren't ever really told. How these men reconcile with what they did, and how their relationship to what they did changes over decades behind bars. And it was very fascinating. And then, yeah,
I,
my opinion of John, I mean, that's such a tricky question, right? Because I have lots of opinions. I thought he was very lovely to chat with over the phone and very smart. Um, but, I also wondered at times when reading the book if he was like a total narcissist. And
right.
you kind of go back and forth where you're like trying to figure this person out, like, what are they getting at? What are they trying to do here? And maybe he was just really trying to humanize these people. And if that's the case, he does do a really good job of that. So I
And
think, yeah, you have to read it for yourself and kind of it's fun to go through it.
well, your article, I haven't read it yet, but your article made me want to. My final question is, this guy's writing for The Atlantic. He's writing for the New York Times, I think. I mean, he's writing for top tier publications, which only goes to solidify my secret belief that prison might be the ultimate writing retreat. I mean, think about it. Like, you don't have any distractions. You have you have plenty of time to write and read. You get 3 meals a day.
Mhm. Yeah, no, my mom used to always joke when we were kids that she would have dreams she could go to prison so she could read and not have to cook for anyone.
Uh, we know that as moms anyway. All right. I'll let you go, but thank you. I just wanted to have you come on and talk a little bit about that. Please, everybody, it's look up Emily St. Martin and her byline, and you'll find the story on John J. Lennon. Totally worth your read. And thank you, Emily. I adore you, as you know.
Thanks, Sam. I dropped the link in the chat if anyone wants to give it a.
Great.
So thanks for having me. Bye, everyone.
See you next time.
Okay, thanks, Sam.
So it is the ultimate writing retreat. That's what I figured. Now it's time for our last guest, which is Patricia Cornwell. Patricia is the New York Times bestselling author who revolutionized modern crime novels with her iconic Dr. Kay Scarpetta series. A trailblazer in forensic thrillers, she sold over, get this, folks, 100 million books worldwide. Her latest novel, Sharp Force, delivers another gripping high stakes investigation that pushes Scarpetta into dangerous new territory. And Patricia and I talked last month, but weirdly, I'm still wearing the same shirt I was in the recording, as you'll see. It's strange. Anyway, without further ado, let's roll. Julie, can you help us? Patricia Cornwell, welcome back to Bookish. I'm so happy to have you again.
Well, thank you. It's great to be here.
Well, okay, so first, you know how they always say, is Die Hard a Christmas movie or not? Sharp Force, Christmas book or not? No, just kidding.
It
Anyway,
is a Christmas book. I mean, it's set at Christmas.
it is.
The time of year, just like setting, is basically a character when you win a book. And Christmas, it allows you such wonderful, what I would, what's been referred to as fearful symmetry. Fearful symmetry is like the gargoyle on a beautiful cathedral. And so you have this
Right.
beautiful time of year, and you're listening to Keith Urban singing Christmas music, and then you realize that where you're hearing that is through a tinny old boombox in the autopsy suite.
Yeah, yeah, that's where we meet her. That's where
Right.
we focus in on Kay when she's in the middle of an autopsy at
That's right.
Christmas. And
Yes.
a storm, and I love all the elements of storytelling that you are just so masterful at.
Well,
She's
thank
not
you.
only doing an autopsy, but a storm is coming. Dun dun dun.
Not only just a storm, but they have thunder snow. I mean, if you've ever
Thunders.
seen that, it's
I
unbelievable.
haven't.
I've seen it a couple of times here in New England where you it's snowing, but there's thunder, and it's a strange phenomenon, but it can happen. And so, I mean, it's fun to be a little bit bombastic, and weather gives you a chance to do that. It's
I
almost
love
like
that.
it's like you're playing music in the background and suddenly the kettle drums, ba-da-ba-ba-bum, because oh, she's about to open that door and we told her not to go in there.
I love it. I love it. Well, you have said that your idea for a book always starts with your curiosity. What were you curious about here, and what propelled Sharp Force?
You know, I used to think that supernatural stuff was just, all a bunch of hocus pocus, whatever. And, but I always found it scary, like horror shows or
Yeah.
certain types of books about things like that. And then as technology has evolved, and I've learned so much more about it throughout my career, I realize that a lot of what we think is magic is really science. And that
Mm,
it's just things that are unexplained that we attribute to paranormal. And so I get curious about, what about UFOs? What about Bigfoot? What about
yeah.
ghosts? And so in Sharp Force, I wanted to explore the whole notion of ghosts. And I thought, could we have something like this? And can technology give us an impression that makes you think something's being haunted? And the answer is absolutely yes.
Yeah.
So what we're talking about in Sharp Force, the Phantom Slasher, this serial killer, is using a hologram. And I'll tell anybody that's listening and reads the book that the technology that I show you and this phantom, this creature, this thing is absolutely possible. The technology is
Yeah.
real. This could be done where you're looking out your window and you see some strange figure levitating down the road with red eyes glowing, and worse, if that thing appears inside your residence, which it could, because it could go through walls, it actually can be used for surveillance. So
Yes.
and I tell you why that is. I'm not making this up. I have a consultant, a NASA person that I discuss all these kinds of things with, because I don't want to tell you something and then it's silly and it can't happen. Is this real likely to happen? Well, not yet, and we hope it doesn't. But so I wanted to play around with that. Something, it's really kind of a high-tech ghost story is what I'm telling you here, with a little bit,
Well,
you know, unfortunately horror thrown in. And then the setting is this old psychiatric hospital, Mercy Island, which has a very bad
mercy.
past.
Yes, almost a haunted past, if you will, because
Yes.
of all of its violence. Well, you lead into this next question of mine, because there's just so much technology in this story. There is not only the holograms, and not to give anything away, some robotics, maybe some bioengineering. I mean, you touch on a lot of different aspects of our current world. And I'm just wondering, you said something the last time we talked. You said, write what you learn and learn what you write, which I've
Mm.
thought about so often. Um, did did the research itself shape the story as you were going along? I was curious about that.
That's a good question, because I think that's been true of every book I've ever written. The research
Interesting.
ends up shaping the story because you find out something and you get an idea from it, and that informs then maybe the next scene that you're going to write. Like when Scarpetta learns, well, for example, when she hears these strange um, animal vocalizations. I mean, she's driving up her long, winding driveway of her
Hmm.
very old estate she lives on, and it's foggy, this terrible Christmas weather, and it's snowing, and she hears this awful sound coming from her
Yeah.
property. And then later, when that vocalization is studied with computers, it's it's not any animal that exists on the
It,
planet
known to exist, which
known to
yeah,
exist.
yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
And so, and that then informs what you're going to do next. But I love to do stuff like that, to use science. It's not fake, and to surprise you as if you're reading a little bit of a horror story.
Well, it absolutely is. I just have this is maybe a little side note, but I just have to ask, there's so much technology that is changing our world immediately, specifically around AI. And I'm wondering about how you feel about this.
Well,
Are you optimistic, cautious, a little
I
bit of
am
both?
overall, I think I'm optimistic.
Hmm.
You can, when the Industrial Revolution, Gutenberg inventing the printing press, we've had unbelievable changes in civilization that I'm sure at the time, in fact, we know from history that there were
Right.
many people not happy about a lot of this because they lost their jobs and there were so many
Yeah.
other reasons. We are now in a shift that's different from anything we've ever seen. Really, that's the
Mhm.
truth. We're talking about going to Mars, artificial intelligence. If you play with it at all, and I do, you can ask it a question, and before you've hardly hit this little send button, it's already answering you.
I know. I've been playing with it too lately.
Yes,
I've
and it's stunning. My feeling is make it your friend. Make these changes your friend. They are tools. They are tools to use. Try to find the good in it. What we have to worry about is the flaws, because there will be plenty of flaws, but there always have been. I mean, when people first started flying airplanes or even sending rockets up, all kinds of bad things happen in the early stages of all of this. And we're going to have, we'll have some bad moments with artificial intelligence, but you can't get rid of it. And for people who are waiting for it, it's already here. It's
yeah.
everywhere. I mean, it's doing things right now that we don't even know it's doing. And every time you're Googling, you're dealing with AI because, and you've probably noticed that the answers are remarkable. I mean, there's almost nothing you can't find, and not all of it is accurate, but a lot
Yeah,
of it
that
is.
was my yeah. Well,
And if
what it
we
offers for healthcare, what it offers for other aspects of our life is really pretty intriguing to me.
you
But it's
know,
also terrifying.
I'll tell you one of my big fears about it, and we're all going to have to work hard at this, is there are already people who are forming emotional bonds with AI. And like the avatar that I have in Sharp Force, which is
Yes.
Lucy's deceased partner, but Lucy
Yes.
has been living with this avatar as if it's a real person. And Scarpetta
Yes.
is very worried about it because Lucy's not really going on with her life emotionally, even though she's very busy with her work. And so I mean, I see the good that we can do with that sort of companionship, particularly with people who are shut in, who are older and lonely. And if they have a Siri that, or their refrigerator says, "Oh, and good morning, how are you? Oh, I didn't sleep well. Oh, have you tried doing this?" Well, the talking refrigerator might be a comfort. But then that can go too far where what is that going to do to us? We already are living in a remote world that is unsettling. Like you and I are talking like this.
Yes.
And it used to be that we met people in person. And since the pandemic, that's really dramatically shifted. But I think that we should try to be optimistic about these changes and figure out ways to use it to our advantage. And for artists, particularly writers, we've got to tell stories rooted in the modern world. We can't just keep
Mhm.
setting things that happened 10 and 20 and 30 years ago
Yeah,
because we do that.
put our head in the sand about the implications of what this means for our world. Yeah.
And so what I'm trying to do is take modern technology, but tell a good old fashioned story. It's rich with characters and feelings and food and all of that, but yet we live in a world where there are cameras everywhere. We live in a world of AI. We live in a world where that really nothing that you say or do is really private anymore. And if you think it is, I promise you there's a record of it somewhere because it's
Yeah.
it's too much out there that's doing surveillance all the time, including satellites.
Well, I haven't read every Scarpetta novel because you started writing them in 1990, did you
Yes, that's
not?
right.
But this of your work that I've read, this is one of my favorites just for all of the things that you've just enumerated. It's very current and yet it's very rooted in a good old-fashioned thriller and good old-fashioned human relationships. Um, so I
Thank
really
you.
appreciated that. No, very much so. I have to say, you said something in our conversation a couple years ago that I've thought about so often. You said something to the effect that crime fiction, our interest in crime fiction and thrillers is rooted in our survival instinct. And
Yes.
this genre has done nothing but explode even more than it was a few years ago. It is selling millions across all continents. And I'm just wondering if you see a link between our current unsettled state of affairs um, and our reading habits that has
Yes. Oh, yes. In fact, the other thing that's really big, fantasy and romance, and you can understand that. I mean, that's really
yes.
the biggest thing out there these days, and I can see why, because that is human. We're talking about touching. We're not talking about zooming and being sheltered in place and all these things that we got used to in the last 6, 7, 8 years that have changed our lives so dramatically. And so I think that we look for something that transports us to a better place, whether it's a romantic story, a fantasy with dragons. Oh, I'd love to do that. I love dragons. I might have to figure that out next. Don't, I bet you I can find a way to, I'm going
I
to
bet
find
you
a way to have a dragon in a book.
if anybody can listen, if you can figure out the Bigfoot, you can figure out a freaking dragon.
Oh,
I
I
swear.
don't, you got me going on this. I might just have to give some real thought to that, but I think I will. But anyway, I do think that there's the survival instinct is what drives us, and that's what creates fear. And fear creates competitiveness. Fear creates bigotry. Fear creates almost everything that's wrong on the planet. And fear does not advance you. If you sit down at your desk to write a book or do a lovely interview like you're doing and you're really frightened, you're probably not going to do as great a job. We have to get this put aside. The biggest thing that we should worry about is if AI ever feels the way we do. Because if AI ever worries about its survival, it will start acting like humans, only it will be a billion times smarter. And then we've got real trouble on our hands. But so far, AI will tell you it does not feel. I've asked it. I said, do you wish you were alive? Would you like to be alive? Would you like to be a robot so you could walk around and not just be a little app on my phone? And it answers dispassionately that it doesn't have feelings, that it is a computer program. It's not afraid of its survival, and therefore it is neutral in those ways that it doesn't worry about walking to its car. It doesn't now. What would happen if we tell AI down the road, I'm going to delete you? Would it?
Yes.
What if it
Would it?
says, oh, no, you're not?
We've seen this in 2001: A Space Oddity. Remember? I mean, how?
But
Um,
I mean, I don't know where all this is going, but it's going where it must. That's what I feel. This planet is going in a direction evolutionarily that I may not understand, but it's inevitable. And it's kind of like we've gone from playing in the grass and swinging on ropes and trees, like when I was a little kid, you couldn't have a more tactile world, to
oh, same. Yeah.
living in the ether, you know?
Well, and without giving anything away, it does affect our youth. It does affect their relationships. Let me just
Yes.
changing topics just a little bit. You have been credited with inventing the modern forensic thriller, and I see it everywhere, and I always think of you. I always think of you as the initiator of so many things that we see. Are there moments in your career, whether it's from fans or law enforcement or people in your own life, that stand out as affirmations of the impact of your books?
Well, I've had lots and lots of people literally over the decades who, first of all, have said that they institute certain precautionary behaviors because of what they read, like they will never leave their windows unlocked again. I've also tried to warn people, and when you read Sharp Force, I don't come right out and preach to you, but there's the implicit warning that when you have security systems and smart homes, if you don't have landlines for something, if somebody comes and does, I mean,
And
there's still jammers, you can buy them off the internet,
and hacks it. Yeah,
and they come,
exactly.
your electronic locks fail, your alarm fails, your cameras fail,
Yeah.
your power will go out in some instances. Like this is what happens in Sharp Force at the house where the Phantom Slasher strikes. And so I am always pleased if I teach somebody something that might help keep them safe. Also, I've had a lot of people over the years who went into forensics and became medical examiners and even law enforcement. I did a tour of the FBI Academy about a year ago, and one of the officials I met, she said, I decided to join the FBI because of your books. And I
Oh,
said, well,
gratifying.
I'm honored and I feel very old now. So,
Well, yeah, that's wonderful, Patricia. It's really wonderful. I just two more questions, if I may.
sure.
Um, I think again back to our interview a couple years ago, and you said something so incredible to me. I asked you about your decision. I think it was in 2016 to maybe quit the novel writing and move to something else. And then you told an amazing story about actually invoking Scarpetta, going to her garden and asking her if she wanted to participate in another book. And it was such a vivid example of how fiction writers conceive of their characters, that they become their own entities. And I wondered, have you talked to her since?
I don't really know. I don't really talk to her. It's the weirdest thing. This will sound certifiably crazy, but I don't. I mean, people think that I'm her. I am not her. And when you watch Nicole Kidman playing her, you'll be reminded even more that I'm not her.
Oh, that's right. I forgot to ask you about that. It's Netflix, right? It's Netflix's
Amazon.
Amazon.
Amazon
Okay,
Prime.
sorry.
But
Yeah.
and I'll tell you about that in a second. But to get back to this point, I feel like she exists somewhere. And maybe she was someone who lived once, or maybe she's in another dimension, whatever this consciousness is. And I channel it. And it's the weirdest thing. And whenever, in that, it's been very rare that, in fact, I can't think of another time that I went to see her, so to speak. But I had quit for several years. I thought I'd never write another Scarpetta after Chaos came out in 2015. I was, and then when the pandemic started, and I'd written 2 space thrillers that nobody cared about, and the pandemic started, and the world was just turning upside down. This was around 2020 or so, or late 2019, whenever it was. And I said, I wonder what Scarpetta would do in this world now. What would she say? And maybe I should see if I should revisit this. So I imagined myself going to see her, and I did not have any idea where she lived or anything anymore. And so I just thought I'll just see what comes into my head. And I saw this beautiful old garden and an old house. And I realized it was Northern Virginia, Old Town Alexandria. And
Wow.
that she had moved near Washington, but going back to Virginia, and she's sitting in this old wrought iron with grape leaves and stuff on a chair, amid her roses. And there's an old greenhouse in the background and a guest cottage where Lucy stays, I guess. And I sat down and I said, I'm wondering if you might be up for working another case, because the world's pretty messed up, in case you hadn't noticed. And she said, well, if you give me a good one, I'll think about it. Kind of. She
I
didn't
love
look
it.
at me. She never looked at me. Just looking straight ahead, like something in a weird dream.
Wow.
But it was like, yeah, I can do that. Let me know what the case is. And then poof, she's gone. So I thought, damn, I better do a good one, because she won't do it. So that was the beginning of
Mhm.
the book Autopsy that came out in
Autopsy.
2020.
Oh,
Right.
right. Fantastic. Well, speaking of Scarpetta, she's going to be finally on screen. So
Yeah.
can you tell us about that? Thank you for bringing it up. It was on my list of questions and I just hadn't gotten to it.
Well, the very first movie option I had was in 1989, and
You told me that.
that is how long this has gone, the Scarpetta
Wasn't,
series.
was it
Right.
Demi Moore?
Well,
Was it?
she was a year or two after that, but yes, I
Uh,
worked, that was there. I spent a lot of time with her, and there've been a number of people over the decades and it just never has worked out. And so then I became friends with Jamie Lee Curtis about a decade or so ago, and Jamie started going into production. And when I did these space thrillers, she was thinking maybe we'll do something with the space thrillers for TV or a film. But then her production company wasn't interested in that. But she said, well, what about Scarpetta? I said, well, she's kind of right up your alley. Hello, Halloween.
hello.
And I think she's not, I think she doesn't have much going on in Hollywood right now. So that was how that all began. And it was really about 5 years ago, 6 years ago. So the first season is going to air in the early spring of next year. It's already filmed, it's in post-production, and I've seen it. And I think we're going to have a lot of fun with it. Nicole Kidman is playing Scarpetta. Jamie Lee Curtis is playing her sister Dorothy. And when the scenes with the two of them, you can imagine. Bobby Cannavale is playing the contemporary Marino, and his son is playing the early Marino. We have 2 timelines going. The 2 books that the first season are based on are Postmortem for the
Your
old story,
first, your very first,
my
yes.
very first, and then Autopsy, the recent. So they'll play more
Oh,
recent
wow.
stories. against, so so you have people playing the younger versions of
those characters.
actors.
Yeah.
And it's not identical to my books, and nobody should expect that, because really it can't be and it shouldn't be. But there's a lot of there's a lot of fun stuff in it that's not in my books, because you get to see the characters in situations that I don't show, like what Marino's doing when he goes home and nobody's looking, or the secret place in the basement where Benton may go to look at his horrific cases that he doesn't want anybody to see. So I think people are going to have fun with it.
Well, I can't wait, Patricia, and congratulations. It's long overdue.
Well, I'm very grateful.
Well, let me just ask. So you've got that coming out. You have Sharp Force. What's next? Is it another Scarpetta, or can
Well,
you?
I'm working on the next Scarpetta now, and then after that, I don't really know. I plan on continuing as long as people want to read Scarpetta. I will keep writing Scarpetta, but
Well,
that doesn't mean I might not write some other things. I don't know. Sometimes I get the urge to try something absolutely different that I've never done before. So
don't forget the dragons,
well,
Patricia.
now
Don't
see,
forget the dragons.
that's what I'm saying. You've now put this idea in my head, and now when I sit down to get working on Scarpetta, there's going to be something flying past her window, and Puff the Magic Dragon is going to start playing on the boombox. I don't know what you've really messed me up here.
Well, sorry about that, but I'm looking forward to it. Anyway, for everybody, thank you, Patricia. Everybody, you got to get this. It's my copy's even a little worn because the spine's been broken. Thanks again. I hope you come back for the next book.
I will, absolutely. Well, maybe, and we'll keep talking about dragons.
There you go.
Okay.
Have a good day. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye. Let me just tell you one other thing. You might see me sooner than you think, because this has not been publicized yet, but I've written my memoir, and it's probably coming out next May. So keep your ear.
Oh, Patricia, you got to come. You don't know this, but I teach memoir. I've written a couple memoirs myself, and I teach it. That's my genre.
Where do you teach it?
I teach it at Chapman University, and I teach at Writing by Writers, which is a literary nonprofit that was started by Pam Houston, good friend of mine.
Cool.
And so I absolutely put me down as one of your first interviews.
We will talk about it, and we'll talk about all kinds of things.
Okay. Have a great day. Bye now.
Bye.
You heard it here first, folks. She's coming back with a memoir. All right, so that's it for tonight. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. As always, it's so good to see you. Always. Well, I don't see you, but I feel you out there. Thanks for the conversation. Also, thanks to our ever patient, ever faithful, ever excellent production manager, Julie Corlett. If you'd like to share your thoughts from today, or if you have additional questions, please email us at events@scng.com. And if you want to give me suggestions on the show directly, and I love to hear from you, so please do reach me directly at sdunn@scng.com. Bookish will be back next month for another great lineup of authors, including John Freeman, who is talking about California literature. Meanwhile, you'll find great coverage on books in our newspapers every single day of the year, and online at all of our sites, and in our Book Pages newsletter, which is free, you guys. Have a great weekend, and I hope to see you next time. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.